on February 10th, 2002, that our 17-and-a-half-year-old son Matthew hung himself in our garage.
Jeremy died on November 9th, 1992. It's almost as important as his birthday.
I never thought that this would happen to us. Not only that we lost David, but that he took his own life. How do you justify that? How do you make sense of suicide? Because it doesn't make sense.
He was an accomplished cellist. He sang in Doherty's honor choir, and he also did sports. Our son was an artist. This is a drawing he did of a photograph.
He had a good circle of friends. He belonged to the church. He had lots of energy there. He belonged to the soccer team, the competitive team, and the high school teams.
I guess in some ways I feel like I was so lucky to have their relationship. We were best friends. He was truly my best friend. I just loved being with him.
He never let his feelings show. If we had known anything, even if he was depressed or if he didn't know how to handle a problem, we would have done whatever we could. We were that kind of close family. They say they couldn't fight, so they gave up and killed themselves. That really hurts me because I don't know what Jeremy's fight was against.
He was my older brother. He was my hero. Like, where he followed, I went, whether or not he liked it,
Golf was always one of his favorite things, and then it seemed like he got to the point where golf really didn't make him happy anymore. And his grades continued to fall and suffer, and he would sleep all the time. Some classic signs of depression. Somebody who is having thoughts of suicide, they don't want to die either. I truly don't believe that. They want to get rid of their problems. They don't want to feel that way anymore.
I remember talking to a colleague at work about David and his depression, and I said to her, I just don't understand why David's depressed. He's got everything going for him. He's incredibly handsome. He's got a six-pack, which he's always wanted. He's got so many friends. Everybody loves him. His teachers love him. Adults love him. The people he works with love him. And he's got a great family. He has no reason to be depressed. And what I didn't know was that my colleague had also suffered from depression. And she looked at me and she said, Ann, when you're depressed, you can't tell somebody why you're depressed all the time. You just don't know. David doesn't know why he's depressed.
Our son told some of his friends that he was going to kill himself. They didn't know to take all talk seriously. They looked at what he had and said, he's got to be joking. Our son was very smart. He'd been in a gifted and talented program since the first grade. He was bullied because he was so smart. He was made fun of because he was so smart.
That silence from Matthew to us, that didn't allow anyone to intervene on his behalf. And then, sadly, the silence of the few people he did mention his plans. They just looked at him and said, no, he's not the type.
One day he was talking to Sarah on the phone. They were having this whole "how would you do it" conversation. Sarah asked David. He said, I'd use the gun my dad bought me for Christmas. My parents weren't stupid. They knew David was struggling. They knew his friend had just died, so they made sure the ammo was locked up, and Sarah knew that. So Sarah said, but Dave, the ammo's locked up. He said, I know, but I know where the key is. 2 days after David's death, she sat on my couch, sobbing, telling me that story. She said, Chris, I thought about calling your mom so many times, telling her to just get the guns out of the house. But I knew David would be mad at me, and I didn't want him to be mad at me.
If someone had told us before February 10th of 2002 that we'd be visiting our son at a grave site, I don't know that we could have imagined that we would be here.
There was nothing romantic or glamorous about me finding our son hanging dead, or having to go home and tell my wife not only was he dead, but he was dead at his own hands. He made a wrong choice, that the suicide is never the answer.
I just always thought that David would be the one guy who was always going to be there for me. That he would never leave me and never break my heart.
When David first died, I didn't want to live anymore. I suppose I've been depressed through my life too, but I never knew this kind of depression after losing David the way we lost David. My husband and I both found David that morning and watched him die. I lost more than my son. I lost all the hopes and the dreams that I had for him.
So I started searching the house, and I found him in his dad's workroom in the basement. He had taken his dad's gun with one bullet, shot himself through the heart. And I just sat beside him. He was in a chair, and I sat beside him and patted his leg and rubbed it and said, "It'll be okay. It'll be okay." And it never was.
I live with this grief and sorrow every day. It's almost like you wear it. It's over you, and kind of like a shawl or something. You don't want it. It's so horrible, and it hurts so bad that you keep wanting to throw it off and get rid of this thing. I can remember getting in the shower some days and just wishing I could stop it, just wash it all away.
When people are that depressed and that suicidal, they're so focused on their problems that they're not trying to hurt the people around them. They're just trying to end their own hurt.
The families and the friends left behind, if they knew what you were thinking, what you were feeling, there are people out there who would do anything and everything possible to help you.
I know our son, we found out after his death, had given away a guitar that he really, really liked. And a lot of times people will give away prized possessions because they want particular people to have it.
If I had been as aware of the risk factors and the warning signs that his classmates, his friends, his teachers, if everyone knew the same information, there's very much chance that my son would still be sitting here.
Even if whatever your pain has been through is totally different, I know what it feels like to be at the bottom and not see any way out. But I hope that you'll make the choice to keep going anyway.
If Jeremy knew that there was somewhere, some person to turn, I think he would have grabbed onto that. But it was a subject that was not talked about at all. So we just didn't go there.
There's no reason good enough to take your own life. Not to anybody who is in their right mind. But what happens to somebody who's depressed and who starts thinking about suicide is they're not in their right mind. They've gotten to a place so deep and dark that they think the only way out is death.
We have wonderful memories of our son, the priceless part he played in our family's life. Selfishly, we really would have preferred that he were here. If there's someone out there who's contemplating that ending their life is the only way to get rid of your pain, I beg of you, as a mother, find someone who's going to listen to you. Give them the chance that our son didn't give us. Our son didn't give himself. Speak up. Seek help. Suicide is never, ever the answer.